Hi, everyone. My name is Angela. I am both a member of Psi Chi, but also an alumni from the master's program. I graduated last year, and I'm going to kind of be walking through some questions. We have some prompts and getting this show on the road. So, welcome to part two of the dissertation symposium. It's specifically steps to defense and post-defense opportunities. So, I'm just going to start by introducing the students we have on the panel. We have, unfortunately, Kimberly couldn't make it, like Stephanie said, but we have Klarissa and Kamri. They're both at the table, right? There they are. And then we have Mary on Zoom. Clarissa's dissertation is qualitative, Kamri's is quantitative, and Mary's is mixed methods. So we have a nice combination of things. And then the faculty, we've got Dr. Franks hopefully on the way.
You
And we
got
have,
Dr. Keenan. Let's start there. Let's start
yes,
there. A faculty in the hand is worth two in the building.
yes. Okay. So I just want to ask the panelists if you don't mind to share your dissertation topic, the methodology, and where in the process you currently are. Whoever wants to start.
Mary, go first.
Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Mary. I did a mixed methods study. It is an explanatory mixed method design. So I did a survey and then I did four heuristic interviews. And the title of my dissertation, which kind of sums up the topic, is how does the experience of expected versus unexpected parental loss in adolescence influence identity development in early adulthood?
Where are you at in the top? Oh yeah. Where are you at with it?
Oh, sorry, in delusion land over here. Where am I? Oh, I defended, I passed successfully, and so now I'm just working with Jana on edits and getting it put on ProQuest.
Okay. I'm Kamri again. Mine was the quantitative dissertation. I'll read the title too because it makes the most sense. So it was looking at parental self-efficacy and coping styles as predictors of anxiety and depression in caregivers of children with PANS and PANDAS. So some pediatric autoimmune conditions, essentially. I did multiple linear regression survey study, and I also defended it last month. And I think it just went on ProQuest like 2 weeks ago.
So mine was a qualitative study. I did the transcendental phenomenology, the quantum science model. And my dissertation was on the traumatic experiences of ICU nurses during COVID and their perceptions of institutional support measures in managing trauma. And I defended a little bit ago, so all kind of wrapped up and on ProQuest and all done.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. And then for the faculty, Dr. Keenan and Dr. Franks, can you guys kind of provide a brief overview of the major milestones in the dissertation process from the proposal meeting to the defense meeting?
The major milestones. You want me to speak, Andrew?
Yeah, good.
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing, the major milestone is opening the damn dissertation manual and reading it from cover to cover and understanding it thoroughly, because what I'm telling people here won't make much difference if you don't read the manual. So read it before and after your proposal meeting. So a major milestone is, no, most people don't get out of the proposal meeting without having to make some modifications to the proposal. So that's the first step. The next step in general is once the chair or the committee approve of those modifications that the committee directed the student to do, the next step is to do your IRB application, which if you it can be an ordeal. Surprisingly, it can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to get through IRB. So get it done as best you can. And with as few errors as possible, which means reading the what? Reading the what? Reading the what? I'm not hearing anybody. Thank you. Thank you. So also begin, if you haven't already, there's a dissertation template, which you need to move if your proposal's not already in that template, you need to get it moved into, it's a template that has special characters to link chapter titles, etc., to the table of contents, and so a lot of formatting issues, which you won't be able to get past the library and get on Procast until they're all done. So we've moved it up. We require this template, and there's a template checklist also. So that's required for the defense. So of course, then there's writing chapter 4 and 5, and revising chapters 1, 2, and 3. Those are also the steps. Usually people let that 1, 2, and 3 put it on the back burner since it passed the proposal, but recommendations were made for improving it, usually, especially if you take any time updating your references, etc. So where are we here? Now we're at we've gone through IRB, you're writing chapter 4 and 5. There's getting, there is on the research resources page, there's something called dissertation process workflows. I believe that's also in the manual, but that's a way to look to see where you're at, because again, you're not going to remember all this, and the workflow is there to help you see where you're going and where you've been. So let's see. I think that's about it. Scheduling the meeting. I mean, meeting with your chair, all that. I mean, do I need to get into that? Those the major milestones. I'll tell you where people get in trouble is when they put off their regular meetings and their regular work. I schedule people, my dissertation students, to have a meeting every 2 weeks, and I expect them to produce something for that meeting. Doesn't have to be a lot. It might be like reviewing, finding an appropriate, let's say somebody's doing something with attachment. So finding reviewing the attachment measures might be a job for the next week. So you got to be doing stuff every 2 weeks. When you put stuff on the back burner because your courses are demanding so much from you, you will add 2 weeks. So every time you don't have a productive 2-week meeting, think about adding 2 weeks to the next semester, because that's what it takes. You need consistent work at least every 2 weeks until you get to crunch time. And then you need every day, right? When you get to crunch time, it's every day. But it takes a long time to get to crunch time is when you start getting feedback from your committee, and you're ready to meet, and you send out the drafts, and that's crunch time. But ordinary time, you got to get work done every 2 weeks, if not more. When times get tough, it's got to be every 2 weeks. So that's my spiel.
In our most recent updates to the manual and the process, we are now mandating at least monthly meetings with your chair, as well as at least once a semester meeting with your advisor. So you come out of the proposal meeting, and as Dr. Keenan was saying, you've got notes on improvements that you should make to chapters 1, 2, and 3. different chairs are going to have different deadlines for which of those elements, but definitely the elements that are being marked for revision in chapter 3, those definitely need to be done before you go get your IRB approval. I like to set a pretty quick deadline for revising chapters 1, 2, and 3 in line with the committee's comments. And then I like to have the committee review. I like to have the students produce a document that describes what those changes are and where the committee can find them. So that way you can very quickly send that document with revisions based on the feedback you got from your proposal meeting. Send your revised documents, your revised chapters 1, 2, and 3, along with the revisions document. It says, here's the comment you made, here's where and how I addressed that. Send that back to the committee for a speedy, okay, yes, I can see how you did all of these, how you addressed all these changes. You're looking good to go forward. But especially, we especially need to have study 3, chapter 3, revised properly before going and submitting your IRB. So yeah, as Dr. Keenan was saying, you get your IRB approval. The less high risk your study is, probably the quicker it moves through that process. And yeah, it could be a couple of weeks or it could be months if you have more complex procedures, more complex methodology, or more high risk methodology. All right, so then, yeah, we made those changes. At least once a month, you're meeting with your chair. That's mandated now. We also provide you with forms to fill out. We now also provide you with forms for planning what you're intending to accomplish each semester. So you should meet the first meeting of each semester with your chair. You should discuss, here are the goals that I intend to get done over the next 3 to 4 months during the semester. After your proposal, you're also going to be starting to register for dissertation credits. Starting next year, we're going to move a small number of dissertation credits up into your 3rd year. And so that'll also hold you accountable to make your best efforts to meet the goals that you set with your chair, to have those monthly meetings with your chair, to have that at least once a semester meeting with your advisor. And again, Dr. Keenan likes to see every 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's at least once a month based on overall program requirements going forward, but your chair might have more stringent requirements than that. But you're going to have at least a small number of credits that you'll be registering for dissertation starting in 3rd year now. We thought about it's not going to affect your it should not affect your financial aid stuff. It's going to move some of your credits a little bit further, let's be a little bit earlier. That should have benefits though going forward because of the way that loans are going to be working. Changes in federal student aid funding. So that'll be a benefit. That's outside the process, but I'm trying to ease anybody's anxiety about credits being moved around. It'll be helpful. Yeah, then once you get your IRB back, one of the things they should immediately move into is starting to collect data. You know, that process might go really fast if you have like an online survey. And you post your survey on Qualtrics. You send it out to your recruitment method. If that's something like Prolific, again, that's really quick. If you're trying to get a hold of folks through like your social network or your professional network to fill out an online study, that still goes relatively quick. If you're doing interviews, you're doing things that are qualitative, deep, in-depth interviews with one person at a time, that's going to take longer. Of course, right? But you start to collect your data after you get your IRB approval. And yeah, then it's working on chapters 4, chapters 5. Once you get full drafts of those, right, send them off to your committee like you did for chapters 1, 2, and 3 before your proposal. You gotta have 1 month in between sending out a full document with those chapters to your committee and when you plan your actual proposal to your actual defense meeting. If you're one of those folks who are getting things done ahead of time, I try to push my folks to get their proposal, their defenses done before going off to internship. In which case, if you're doing that, you can defend in any month. But the more common thing, at least right now, is for folks to not defend until the summer that they are graduating, that same summer. And in that case, you need to have your defense done by the end of that June, because there is work to do after your defense. And so we've recently set it up so that way, if you are defending in the same year that you're graduating, you have to have your defense meeting done by the end of June. So you've got the month of July to handle all the post-defense, all that post-defense bureaucratic work, including going and making revisions based on your committee's notes about chapters 4 and 5. Which that means that you have to have a full, if you're one of those folks who's defending in your summer just before graduation, that means you have to have a full draft of your document sent out to your committee 2 months before graduation, right? By like the end of May, so you can have your meeting by the end of June, and then do all the post-defense stuff before the actual graduation ceremony, so that we know for sure that you indeed have done everything that you need to do to get your degree before you walk. In the past, we've been allowing folks to walk before having all that stuff finished, but you don't really have a degree until your dissertation is finalized and published on our servers.
Thank you both so much. Now we're going to move into some questions about the data collection for the panelists. So the first one is if you can each just go through how did you approach your data collection plan and what surprises came up in the process?
Do you want me to go first?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, data collection. So obviously I had kind of 2 steps. So first was the survey, and I would say that because my criteria was a little specific, it was difficult finding enough people to fill my survey out, completely before, potentially getting booted out for not matching the criteria. So yeah, that was difficult, but definitely Facebook groups are your best friend. And that was really helpful. Reaching out to some like other therapists and things was helpful, but honestly, Facebook groups was the best and got the most results. And yeah, that was that. And then I only had 4 interviews, so it was really pretty quick for me to get those participants. So that wasn't really too much of an issue. I think how difficult it was for me to get enough surveys was definitely something that caught me off guard. Definitely manageable, and I defended, so it was fine and everything worked out. But I would definitely say that if you're going to do a survey, making sure that you really do research and understand how you're going to kind of recruit people to take your survey, especially if you need, more than 50, and really kind of think through that. I think that would have been helpful if I would have done that. I might have changed my method a little bit more if I would have thought that through. But yeah, was there another question that I didn't answer?
No, you answered everything.
Okay.
Thank you. Who wants to go?
Yeah. My data collection was actually pretty straightforward, thankfully. So I did quantitative, like I said, survey. I think I needed like 120 or 130 completed. And because my committee had a lot of concerns that I would not be able to recruit enough participants, that's actually mostly conversation in my proposal meeting. And so I think a lot of work before getting there to make sure that you kind of know the population you're going to sample from. I had done a lot of research, even looking at, like Mary said, Facebook groups, and like I could see how active they were in this the area that I studied. There's not many people studying it, right? So I knew there was a lot of people eager to partake in things like this. So I actually had all of mine within like a week, honestly, and that had me shocked. I did not expect it to be that quick and easy. So I would say my process matched pretty well what I proposed, because I kind of had the idea of going into those groups and just seeing who responded. If we get into limitations, I had an incredibly homogenous group. That's not a conversation for now. So yeah, just kind of looking ahead of time. I know we're talking like after proposal at this point, but yeah, setting yourself up for success.
I think for me, to what Dr. Franks was talking to with qualitative, it definitely took me a long time to get through my data collection. I had 10 participants total, and I think I did my first like 3 or 4, and I was struggling to recruit people. So I had a few months of a gap because I couldn't get any more participants. And I think a big part of that was because of my topic and the sensitive nature of the topic and what I was asking people to open up about. And it took one of my participants to tell her friends, and then I got the rest of my people that I needed to. So I think like knowing your population and knowing like the best way to get connected to them is probably going to be what's helpful. And also planning, if it is qualitative, budgeting enough time, because it does take a lot longer, for sure.
I'm thinking having a perhaps overly narrow or difficult to access population from which you wish to sample can even be a roadblock for like online quantitative research as well. We had one of our students who's currently working on their dissertation has had to go back to their committee at least twice now to get approval to revise their population and how they're going to recruit that population to make it less narrow and more accessible, because he had been hitting such a major roadblock. Even though it was a survey that could be completed online, he just wasn't able to find the exact people that he was looking to get. So you got to remember, it's really tempting, especially being at a small and humanistic school. We think a lot about underserved, underrepresented, largely invisible communities, and that's that demonstrates, I think, virtue among our students who think about individuals who are oftentimes invisible in the research literature. But at the same time, we often will have a harder time as a small institution with fewer faculty members, therefore fewer connections into the broader academic landscape, fewer connections with the community than big institutions have, and then also less research resources and funding to perhaps provide money to recruit folks. We're going to have a harder time getting at those small groups, right? Our folks, I think, our students are more likely to think about those types of individuals as the needs of and the need to examine the experiences of really highly underserved populations that, again, are oftentimes very invisible within the existing research literature. And again, it's a virtue, but you also want to think about the logistics of finding really small, specific, very, very highly invisible, marginalized groups. The more specific, the more traditionally invisible they've been, the harder they're going to be to find. And we might not have the resources and outreach to find those folks. So think about those things logistically. In an ideal world, yeah, we'd be able to conduct all that kind of research as a small institution that looks out for the most marginalized and invisible people in our society. But we don't have often the ability to get enough of those folks. So maybe also think about, if there's a group that you're interested in, think about, okay, what's maybe the next group out from that that's like includes that group, that smaller group, but it might be easier to find. Or can we examine, other factors that factors among a broader population, and how a broader population's attitudes or treatment of that group might be problematic, or how we could intervene to, improve the attitudes of the broader population towards those groups, or something like that. Because it is, I think, when I look at the list of in-progress dissertations and I look at the ones that are overdue, when I look at the students who might be like have completed everything, including maybe internship, except for their dissertation. One of the things I notice oftentimes is, yeah, they've got a hard population to try and recruit from.
Okay, thank you all. Now we're gonna, sorry, did someone say something? No? Okay. So now we're going to move into some questions regarding the defense for the panelists. So could you all please describe your process for writing chapters 4 and 5 and the final work that went into editing the entire dissertation in preparation for your defense meeting? And again, was there anything that surprised you? Do you have any advice for the other students? Mary, if you want to start again, we can go one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest tip is just to start. I think I spent probably too much time trying to be perfect. Like when I started, I had to be able to finish it and write these really profound things. But that wasn't happening. So honestly, I would say my biggest piece of advice is just start, write, brain dump. You've experienced the data collection, the information. So getting it out on paper is the best thing that you can do for yourself and your brain. And you can go back and edit. I did a ton of editing. I think Dr. Keenan, you mentioned kind of picking it up every 2 weeks until it's crunch time. But yeah, so there were definitely times where it was, every day or every other day, it was like, okay, I'm gonna edit or write more or whatever it is, but giving myself a lot of breaks, or even just walking away from the desk and walking back, just whatever I needed to do to kind of reset and refocus on writing the chapters. But I would definitely say just start, and it's actually a lot more interesting and a lot more fun in hindsight than I realized in the moment. Because obviously you're reading or you're researching something that you at least care about in some way. So of course, getting to see this new data and information, we are kind of nerds in here, psychology nerds. So, or maybe I am, no one else is, that's fine. But this stuff is interesting for us. So I think, just starting and trying to enjoy the process, even though I don't think that I did, but I could have and I should have. So that's kind of, I feel like, my biggest piece of advice for that.
I would agree. I think I made my own life challenging. Like I said, my data was, I had all of it within a week, and that was like a year and a half ago. So I very much took a way longer break than I should have, and created a rush for myself that should not have been there. But that said, though, I think like once you do pick it up, once your data is collected and all of that, I think something that's helpful for me was looking at examples of people that have done the same method as you, seeing like how they laid out the chapter. Just, I know that's something I get very fixated on, is like how much do I read about this versus that. So just kind of gauging what people have done before you. If there's a dissertation similar to what you're doing, that was really helpful for me. And then just being very consistent. It was me even at internship, which I like the advice, trying to send before you go, because it gets very easy, and it's nice being an internship, right? No school feels like you're out of school, honestly. So just being really consistent with it. Both of those chapters are pretty much just reliant on you. Honestly, you're not really waiting for anyone else at that point, except for getting feedback from your committee. Staying consistent, doing a little bit of something every day or every week was really helpful for me. I honestly sent for feedback more frequently than just like the last draft. I sent it to Dr. Keenan pretty much every chapter, one at a time, so that the feedback wasn't too overwhelming, because I think that would probably have been very stressful if I just got all the feedback from everyone in the last month. So I actually sent it to all of my committee each chapter, which was really helpful and something they were willing to do. So honestly, yeah, my biggest advice is do not procrastinate. And seek feedback if you have questions versus just waiting for the last, month, the last final draft.
Yeah, I would echo that. Dr. Blackstock was my methods person. He's my advisor, and I was in contact with him a lot. Like we went back and forth with my chapter 4, and I think with qualitative too, it's a lot longer than the quantitative chapter 4. And a lot of just like organizing all like the quotes and like grouping it and just being like really thoughtful on how everything's laid out. So I definitely would recommend like being in contact with your committee and like reaching out to them when you need something. And I never had any issues with being like, hey, can we just like send this back and forth? And I think that streamlined it a lot towards the end. I was also very fortunate that on internship, I had a half day slotted for dissertation. So I was able to get a lot of work done during my half day. But I don't think that's a common thing on internships. I got very lucky. I think it would be a big help if you are able to defend before going to internship, or at least getting as close as you can, so you can fully enjoy internship and getting the clinical experiences you want.
That's one reason to move forward with your data. As soon as you get it. Another reason to move forward with your data, working on chapter 4, as soon as you get your data collected, is that you're still fresh.
Right.
You're freshly thinking about your methodology. You're freshly thinking about everything that has to do with your dissertation project. You back burner that for several months, and now you might be like going back into your own chapter 2 and trying to like remake sense of everything you collected and why.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just go with it immediately, you minimize the degree to which you have to re-familiarize yourself with what you're doing.
We're gonna learn that too.
Yeah. And I thought like just generally like chapters 4 and 5 felt easier to write versus like chapters 1 to 3.
It's more like a formula.
Yeah. And like Mary said, like your data and like what you're working with, so it felt a lot easier to get like the writing portion done first draft. Yeah.
Great. And then what was the big conception you guys about the defense before going through it? Was there any sort of misconception you can think of?
It wasn't scary at all. I genuinely lost sleep. Like I thought it was gonna, no, it was the easiest, most delightful, lovely experience. And I don't know if it's committee specific. I know that that is not everyone's experience, so I will definitely say that. But I will say that I think overall it is a lot less scary than you think. Um, so yeah, that's my 2 cents. Like it's
Oh yeah.
they wouldn't ever let you get there unless you were ready.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was a lot less intimidating than I expected and like went into assuming it would be. And Dr. Callan he offered to like meet with me the day before to kind of just like walk through like what to expect and for him to kind of ease my nerves, and I thought that was really helpful to just talk through things before the actual meeting. So that's nice.
Yeah, I like Googled had Dr. Callan.
Yeah.
Nerves. I was incredibly anxious. I mean, I know Dr. Johnson's not here anymore, but he's a very nice man, and I was actually asking Dr. Callan, like, do you think he's gonna like interrogate me about statistics? Like, what do you think I need to include? I was so nervous. And if they asked me nothing about any of it, honestly. It was very much like curious what you learned from the research, what are your actual like true thoughts about what you found, like what the implications. And not like they weren't having an actual correct answer in mind. They were genuinely curious. So yeah, like you said, they want you to pass and do well. I think it wouldn't be very fun for your chair for you to get there and you to not pass. So seeing it in hindsight, yeah, it was actually a very pleasant time, and I wish I was not stressed about it for as long as I was. So a lot of undue anxiety, but I think it caused us to make sure we were really prepared too.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Do you like there was something during your dissertation process that made the defense like a lot easier in the end? You guys think of it?
I think kind of what I was saying earlier about just keeping in touch with your committee and like not being scared to ask them questions and go back and forth versus like waiting to set up the chapters until it's like where you want it to be. I think that helped kind of just streamline things and made it a lot smoother towards the end.
I would agree with that. Yeah, because like mine, for example, had some like sort of interesting outcomes of the data showed us. And so like by my defense meeting, I had already sort of talked or emailed about those findings with everyone on my committee. So it was more of like an actual conversation. It wasn't a time where they were just hearing it for the second time, after reading it 2 weeks before. So staying in touch, I do my advice here as well. And I honestly think the proposal meeting set me up pretty well too, because genuinely they were, not that they were ever hard on me, but that was more challenging or like stressful meeting, I would say, than the defense by far. And even if that wasn't that hard. So I think if you expect like proposal meeting, it'll be like that or even easier and more chill.
And then the last one, defense related questions. Can you guys summarize in one word how you felt after your defense?
Yes. Like,
Relief.
Yeah. Relief. I was like, not like confused, but like, yeah, like what? Like I really stressed about.
Yeah.
It ended up being not even it's like all of that.
It's kind of crazy to me how it's like all this work and then right after your defense, it's like, oh, it's over.
Very much just a part of it.
Yeah.
Like they do this all the time.
Right.
So now we have a couple questions related to post-defense for each of you. So what are some ways you've shared your research after the defense, like publishing, conferences, community partnerships, any other ways? Mary?
I can just go because I haven't done any of those things yet, so I don't have any information on that, but maybe the girls do, I'm not sure, but I can't help in that area yet.
I started working on trying to get it published. Haven't really spent a lot of time on it, to be honest. I did do a presentation at internship because we were required to do like scholarly presentation, so I did it on my dissertation. So that was a cool experience, sharing that with the internship committee and like hearing their thoughts. But other than that, I haven't really done your topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly have not done much either. Similar to Klarissa, I did because I'm an internship, more so just to practice it, honestly. And then I know that there's randomly some PhD students in Australia that are studying the same thing. So they were like, after they saw my survey, yeah, a long time ago, they were like, keep us in the loop. So I sent them my request link after it was up. And they are like, you should make an article. And I know faculty always is telling us that we should publish it. So I genuinely will try to do that. Your opportunity or get you removed from school. So it's kind of my plan would be to try and get it in some sort of journal. But no, I've not done anything.
And now there's a question specific for the faculty. What do you encourage students to do with their research once they've defended?
Well, I do encourage all of my students to publish. It's part of when folks ask about what my work style is like as a chair, I make that an explicit component of the expectations that I have. You know, one of the expectations being that we are going to do our best to get you done before going on internship. And then that you're going to publish the research in a peer-reviewed journal. I think it's another reason why I think it's helpful to defend before going on internship, because then that year can be spent revising your work down into the smaller, more focused format of a peer-reviewed journal article. And that's still some work you got to do in addition to your internship, but of course, then you don't have the same sort of deadline pressure because that publication could come after graduation, right? Which makes it a little bit less, something that you have to prioritize over or in addition to, I guess, your internship to get both those things, accomplished by the time you graduate, sort of thing. Conference presentations, of course, that absolutely has to happen. Definitely got to present it at the very least. But publishing is the goal. I also encourage follow-ups. I'm hoping to develop a kind of lab model whereby folks in newer cohorts are working in my research lab with folks from higher cohorts, and that the work of folks who are in higher cohorts influences the choices of topics and methodologies of folks in the newer cohorts, and therefore also invite folks back during internship year to perhaps still partake in lab meetings with students who might be engaging in their own dissertation work or in non-dissertation research as well. As part of lab that's following up on the work of the students in the higher cohorts. And therefore, increasing the impact of the research that if your dissertation research, right? If you're following up, if you are actively involved in follow-ups and you're getting more authorships of more presentations and more publications down the road, if your dissertation research is influencing the dissertation research of newer cohorts and or the outside of dissertation research lab work, then that's increasing the impact of your dissertation because that's going to be more citations of your work, going to grow the research footprint of our institution, going to grow your own academic impact as an academic researcher. So I'd like to encourage that sort of thing as well. Continued research, follow-ups, collaborations with younger cohorts in order to accomplish that. And I will also say that the process that the way that you write your dissertation can also facilitate the ease with which you can turn it into a publication. It's one of the reasons why I do encourage, to the point of, even calling it probably a requirement, for me personally as chair, to have some elements in chapter 1 that are not strictly required by the rubric, by the dissertation rubric, that kind of preview some of the content in chapter 2 in a more condensed format. And that more condensed format, a 2-page treatment of your theoretical framework in chapter 1, not required in the dissertation rubric, but having that, well, one, it primes your reader for what they're going to eventually be reading in chapter 2, but also later on when you're going to publish, you have a more concise treatment of that framework that will more easily translate into the length and depth of that framework when you go to publish, rather than trying to later on down the road, after you've written 25 pages of theory, trying to boil all that back down to 2 or 3 pages of manuscript pages for peer review.
Is there anything you'd like to add,
Well, I think Dr. Franks covered that pretty well. I think the thing I like students to think about is, what do they want to do when they grow up? There's the after graduation, there's early career. Where do you want that to take you? If you're going to look for an academic position, research becomes much more important. If you're looking for a clinical position, like at a hospital or something, applying your research to clinical work is very important, and you would publish in that area. Hopefully you're researching in that area if you're that's where you want to work. So I encourage, think long about what you want to do with your dissertation, how it can help you, thrive in your career, and then publish in accord with that.
Okay, great, thank you. I guess this question is open to both faculty and the students, but what would you say the first steps are to turning a dissertation into a publication, and what should students kind of be aware of or watch out for?
The first step is the last paragraph in your dissertation, usually, because it tells you, in the summary you're talking about, in that very last paragraph, you're really putting the positive spin on the implications of your dissertation. So I think that a good summary, a good power statement at the end of your dissertation is the first step to the publication.
Thank you. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we move on to the next questions?
I would say, okay. So as I mentioned, I think maybe the first step is, again, be thinking ahead with how you're working on the dissertation document itself, and doing your best to think about in advance, how am I going to take this more in-depth treatment of my work and make it more concise for publication. Coming out of completing the project, finishing up the dissertation manuscript, some other first steps, talking to your committee about how much involvement they're going to have in authorship. You should probably assume that the entire committee is going to want to be co-authors on any publications that come out of your dissertation, and approach them about whether that assumption is true. I mean, go into it with that assumption, but then also confirm that they indeed do want to be co-authors on a publication, and then also sort of think about, okay, what's that going to look like? How much of this is going to be, how much converting this into a peer-reviewed publication is going to be on me entirely, but then versus how much might they be willing to more directly partner with you rather than supervise and review your work and edit it, offer comments later down the road. And of course, your chair is going to be the person who's going to be most likely to make the biggest contributions there. But they might have ideas about how your advisor or consultant might actually be the person who's better to be your top co-author. It's also possible, right? Your dissertation manuscript is you're the only actual author, right? But at publication, you can also pull in additional co-authors, folks who are not part of your committee, whether that be other faculty members who maybe helped you out informally during the dissertation process, right? Sometimes we get notes from people who are not on our committee. Those people could be co-authors of publications that come out of your dissertation. Also possible that other students could be, especially if you have similar research topics. They could help to author the version of that gets sent out for peer review, which could be even more the case if you do have related research that's done kind of in sequence, where it becomes a multi-study paper, perhaps, right? That could be other people's dissertations that are similar being added on as additional studies in a peer review publication. Or it could be, non-dissertation research that's done in a lab that's headed by your chair or something. And so there might be additional folks that come into that process as well. So you've got to think about that. And then also you want to think about where is this going to be published? And that's something maybe you could also be looking into even before you finish up with the dissertation work is, what sorts of journals, identifying some journals that would be appropriate venues for your work. And that could be based both on the scope of the work, but also some journals are more focused on qual stuff or on quant stuff, specific topics. Some dissertations here are going to be a little bit more are going to have clinical implications, but overall are going to be more within social psychology areas. Others are going to be more really directly clinically based. So you're going to be looking at, specific journals that are based in social psych or cognitive psych or clinical psych. And thinking about what's the most appropriate, or sexuality, right? There's a lot of work that might be positioned well to be published in sex and gender journals as well. But think about, where is it going to be published? Think about several appropriate venues, and then think about what you've got to do to hit the qualifications of those venues. So there are a lot of things to think about in that regard as well.
Thank you so much, Franks. And we have one last question to kind of wrap things up. We have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to combine the last two questions. But for the students, what's the one thing you're most proud of in your dissertation, and how do you plan to carry your research forward into your next chapter, whether it be professionally and or personally? If you guys want to go one by one, please.
I think the thing I'm most proud of is that it's done. I think not in like a shady way, like I'm over it, but in a way of like, I think along the way, there are very like trying times where I'm sure was just like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to finish it. It is what it is. But so I'm proud that I pushed through and I finished it. And I think proving that to myself, and I think that's what I'm going to be carrying into this next chapter is like, I can not just do hard things, but I can do incredibly difficult things and do them despite a lot of obstacles. And I'm really proud of that.
Yep, I was gonna have the same answer. I'm proud of it. which is true. I think also it's always good to like acknowledge that we're, you know, contributing to research that's usually somewhat limited or unique in some way. And for me, I'm able to kind of tie some connections between the implications of my study and the populations I have been and will be working with, which I think is cool. Like professionally, I think it's cool and we can pull from our research and learn from it. Yeah, I'm happy it's helpful.
Same. Happy it's done. I think for me too, like with qualitative, like being able to share people's like lived experience and like share their stories, it meant a lot to me. And I think kind of what Kamri said, applying that professionally and like moving forward, hopefully maybe doing more research with like adjacent kind of topics or the same umbrella scope, hopefully. So.
Great, thank you all. Well, that was the last question.
Okay.
Thank you, faculty, students, for all your time. And yeah, congratulations again to everyone.